We're back. Welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and today we are reading the Meno. And we're at the end of the Meno, so we're going to do a review of where we started. And the kick we've been on recently is carrying with us the hypothesis that everything that we learn in both dream analysis and philosophical midwifery, we can carry with us as questions into our reading of philosophy, and vice versa. We've coined the term philodianoia, the love of understanding, as the name of the highest study and the one true art that all humans are here. Not the one true art, but the paradigm of art itself, and what we are here to master as human beings. The art of the logos, the art of the dialectic, or the love of understanding, which has three parts: philosophy, using our mind to know the truth of self and reality, and the truth of things like beauty and justice, and so on. Philosophical midwifery, using the logos and dialectic, using our understanding, using our mind, using our state of self to discover our problems, or rather the cause of our problems, certain class of problems that keep us bound to ignorance and injustice and prevent us from learning anything that can take us off that path, that which binds us to fate and suffering. And dream analysis, the guide necessary to do both of those two things, both as a guide for your work in both, and as a tool to learn the methodology required in both. And if we wanted to round out the philodianoia with a fourth activity, we can call it mythology, the application of what we're learning in those three aspects in our activities, in our creations, in our arts, in what we share with others. So, fascinating, because there are, of course, four categories within the dialectic itself. So isn't that neat? Isn't it interesting that the four aspects of the highest art, or the art that encapsulates the purpose of humanity, reflects the very thing that defines it? In other words, it's a demonstration of what it is, of its definition. Isn't that neat? Is it telling that definition and demonstration are the first two categories of that very thing? I think it's neat. Our question is, what does Meno think about this? Does Meno think it's neat? We have a lot of questions as we've been reading. One of the most interesting ones recently is, how can it be that the very things that Socrates is laying out for us in this conversation with Meno and Anytos and the slave, Meno's slave, who seemed to do well, seemed to be more open to being wrong, curiously enough, the one that wasn't wealthy, the one that wasn't a member of the political class, working class maybe? Why was that person more able to follow the dialectic, be okay with being wrong, and then after realizing he was wrong about what he thought he was an expert in, was able to learn something new? What does that say? What does it say that the only dialectic that Meno was able to follow was that which follows shapes and colors, literally were the two terms used in the dialectic? Considering people who are moved by shapes and colors, or think in terms of shapes and colors, is a term we use today. What does it say that Anytos, his reaction to finding out that he didn't know what virtue was to threaten to kill Socrates? What does it say that this very Anytos is someone who is anti-intellectual? He didn't even like the people at their colleges that claim to teach virtue. Any academic. Do we see these archetypes playing out in our world currently? If that's the case, and it is imperative that we learn this art and address these archetypes in our world right now, what does it mean that Socrates is able to communicate to us about those things through time? Is it a coincidence? Or is that part of an art? Is part of an art being able to help the subject specifically, not just in the moment that they are at in the doctor's office, let's say, but when they leave? Is that necessary to be able to look ahead and prescribe what's needed even into the future? If so, is Socrates talking to us now? What would that mean for us? And if that's the case, what's our response going to be? Is it going to be a slave boy response? Is it going to be a Meno response? Is it going to be an Anitos response? Or, as we've been learning in dream analysis, could our response be to raise ourselves as best we can to match the mind of Socrates himself as someone who has mastery of that very art and uses that very art to help himself, to help his fellow man, and maybe even to help our entire species? What would that take? What would it take to do our best to match the mind of Socrates? Now, that's an idea that we have been playing with in dream analysis, because in order to understand the messages and meaning of our dreams, we have to be doing our best to raise ourselves to that level of mind of our dream master. And what we've been seeing is, if we do our best, it's not about being right, it's not about being perfect, but if we do our best to follow the logos, to follow the dialectic and apply the dialectic to our dreams, it seems like our dreams and maybe even the universe itself works with us. How can we use that to gain insight into virtue in this text that we are reading? Does that reflect the idea of aporia, not having all the answers, being at a loss, or being stung? It's a bit dark, but still doing our best anyway to continue the dialectic. Every time Meno tries to derail the conversation with this or that counter attack to the logos and understanding, Socrates says, well, you know what? I don't know, but I'm willing to follow the logos with you. Let's get back on track. Let's get back into the conversation. So it's different from what we think it means to be wise, having all the answers, being able to debate 20 atheists at once, or to be able to debate a bunch of fascists on this or that right-wing TV show. Different, isn't it? To be at a loss. But to be okay with that, to talk about it, to embrace it. And to take that state of mind of being at a loss with us as we go back to exploring and following the logos through the dialectic. Now, this reflects what we're reading in midwifery, the idea of emptying our cups. Because in philosophical midwifery, the application of this art to uncover our unsuspected false beliefs about ourself and reality, and what's good and beautiful, that keeps us chained to our own suffering and ignorance and injustice, we have to be empty to begin the whole game. What we've been reading is every level of development through that 12-stage process of discovering and removing your most important problems, there is a new level of ousia. Ousia is a fancy Greek word that we need to be using because we don't have a word for it in English. That is the function of mind to turn about and know itself. It's the essence of the realm of being. If the realm of being is prior to and causal of the physical world of time and space, then how do things maintain its existence there? This is, of course, what we're reading in the Meno and the idea of remembering. Education is a preparation through the logos and dialectic to recall what we once knew, which is essential because in order to ask the question, can virtue be taught? We have to wonder, well, what's learning? If learning is a kind of remembering, then we have to ask the question, is virtue one of those rememberable things? In philosophy, we call them eidos, or Socrates calls them eidos, aspects of that rememberable experience. And it's open to everyone. It's open to the most wise people like Socrates. It's open to people with no land or power or money, like the slave boy. It's open to well-educated political nepo babies like Meno. And it's even open to people like Anitos, yokels or rednecks or MAGAs who are anti-intellectual but still think that they are the experts. Everyone in Donald Trump's cabinet or all his staff. Literally, they say, well, you can't trust the experts, but trust me, a non-expert on this topic, which is a strange thing to say, but that's where we are. If the eidos are open to everyone, if Socrates invites everybody to play, what does it say about what we need to do as human beings to unite as a species while also protecting diversity, both of which is necessary for evolution? We have to unite as a race. We can't go around killing each other and starting World War III and ending our species. But we can't set up concentration camps like the 3 that are being set up by Donald Trump as the time of recording to oppose anything different from his dad's way of being. Racist, grifting, con artist, money seeking, etc., etc. We need to protect diversity within a species, which is necessary for evolution, but we also have to unite and care for our whole species as one. The one and many problem. The fundamental problem of all of this. Considering this process of philodianoia through those 4 aspects, wink, 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 is to return to the oneself. But to return having mastered some sort of art. Otherwise, what's the point of leaving the oneself only to return to the oneself, having gone through all the suffering and misery of forgetting the true nature of self, forgetting the knowledge of self in that experience of being? Why go through all that? Why go through this crazy world of injustice and ignorance? Is it because reality is cruel and stupid? Well, we are finding out as we read that ain't the case. Our problems are understandable, something we can verify for ourselves in midwifery. Reality is understandable and knowable, which we are discovering in the Meno. And our dreams, every message that we get through our dreams, and also complemented by our everyday thoughts, fantasies, distractions, are themselves understandable and being sent to us for our benefit, in which case we can't dismiss it as just an evil universe or a trickster universe. How can it be intelligible, rational, understandable, and good, providential, for us to leave the oneself only to have to return through this philodianoia art? In other words, we leave the oneself to return with some sort of mastery of the many, the one and many together. Is that interesting? If that's the case, then that might be a level of development beyond even the first hypothesis of Parmenides. The first hypothesis of Parmenides is Parmenides describing the one self. His self, his hypothesis of himself, which is the one self. If that's the case, then we've got some work to do, because that means that there is a stage that we are moving into beyond what we have formerly considered the highest model of spirituality, the Parmenides, which encapsulates all other ones within its structure, within its map of the whole, or beyond the 10 ox herding pictures, which is the description of the stages of development or enlightenment through Buddhism. As close to a model or a map as Eastern spirituality has. If there's a stage beyond it, that is some sort of mastery of both the one and many problem, then we've got some work to do. And maybe quickly. Or as Socrates says, move quickly like a thief. How quickly can you get there? Well, we're ticking all the boxes on this channel. We're doing dream analysis, midwifery, philosophy, and, well, I've been putting off my music streams because I've been working on playing live at the moment, but I've been promising to get into that a lot recently, and I promise, well, I'm going to do my best at least to get into streaming music this week on Twitch as well. So I'll let you know how that's going. The one many problem. Necessary also for our species. We have to have a one. We can't blow each other up. We can't keep doing this capitalist game where one person has all the wealth and everybody else ends up in prison camps or in prison. Well, yeah, prison camps or concentration camps or just wage slaves or dead. We need to account for the diversity. We need to account for many, but we also have to see our species as one. And that's what philodianoia offers. It ain't about opinions or beliefs. That's what we empty in philosophical midwifery. That which causes division. My mummy says that black people are this or that. My daddy says that poor people are this or that. So we have to fight them or kill them or send them to whatever. Bullshit. Can't do that. Can't do that. And that's what we're learning in both midwifery and philosophy, that our evolution or our development as people isn't development in terms of how well we can learn to manipulate people to extract profit or wealth from them. It's a movement through cognitive functions. From shapes and colors thinking, personal opinions, beliefs, and as we've been reading in midwifery, from pathologos, the deeply held beliefs about self and reality that we are attached to and identify with. That's the big deal. It's not just an opinion that can change. No, it's me, and I will kill you if you threaten my Catholicism, because I'm a Catholic. I identify with it. That kind of shit. So, a movement from those kinds of beliefs through prejudices, false beliefs that are disproven by evidence, through supernatural beliefs, beliefs that can't be shown by evidence, religious beliefs. You can't prove religion. That's why they say, just believe me, because look at me, I look like your mummy and daddy, and didn't you believe them? So believe my horseshit about how you should live, or the giant sky daddy, or whatever the fuck. Irrational or absurd beliefs into simple beliefs, scientific beliefs. Simple beliefs, of course, there is sufficient. No, simple beliefs are you have enough to go on. I have enough evidence and reason to believe my car needs petrol. I ain't no mechanic. That's enough. Scientific beliefs, understanding how and why my car needs petrol. And beyond that, axioms, fundamental principles that are beyond evidence and reason, but are necessary for evidence and reason. Like 1 and 1 is 2. How can that be? How can you put 1 and 1 together? How does it become 2? Surely, if I put 1 and 1 together, they're still 1s. They look like 11. You can't prove that, but you need it. And then, beyond that, into the conditions and causes of those principles, now you're in philosophy. The movement through that, Socrates calls philomathesis, the love of learning. And then you have to ask the question, what are the necessary principles, conditions, causes for everything we see through our physical senses in the physical world of change or becoming? Now you're wondering about the realm of being. Now you've graduated to philosophy. From the love of learning, philomathesis, to the love of wisdom, that experience of what is knowable directly outside of time and space. So, if it's outside of time and space, what accounts for its existence, its permanence? Not just permanence, it's eternal, immortal permanence. Such that 1 and 1 will equal 2, not just for us, but for an alien galaxy 100 billion light years away. Maybe they'll hold up a stick and another stick and go, ooh, 2 sticks. Not just in distance, but in time and space. 1,000,000 trillion years away, even if humanity doesn't wake up to our quest of philodainoia and we go extinct. Can you imagine another race evolving into intelligence and realizing 1 and 1 is 2? So there's a kind of eternal permanence for the principles required for the physical world of becoming. That's philosophy. And what accounts for that? That's ousia. The beingness of pure intelligence or pure mind or mind itself. In philosophy, it's self-mind. Self is the honorific. So the aspects of mind that we study in philosophy, self-being, self-beauty, they have that honorific in front, like Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones. But the word is self. So ousia is mind's capacity to turn around and know itself in that eternal way, giving it a selfhood, giving it its existence. And that experience of ousia directly is what Socrates has been talking about as what can be learned, because that can be remembered. Socrates has mentioned there are a few things I do know, and the difference between that, the object of knowledge, that can be learned, because education is a remembering or preparation for remembering, and opinions, which are derived from our physical senses, which relate to the physical world. So that movement through those different cognitive functions, you could say, are levels of ousia. There is some sort of self-reflection maintaining our pathologos to keep it alive. Our everyday thoughts and distractions and our projections and our angers and all those sorts of things that are tied to a certain state of mind that cause our problems, that has an existence. That has a kind of experience. There's a level of ousia, the most shallow and stagnant slop ousia. You could call it slop ousia. To reflect on those, to reflect on the text, to develop right opinions. It's a different level of ousia. the application of the dialectic to those opinions, a higher level of ousia, graduating ultimately in ousia knowing itself as ousia, or mind minding mind, ousia itself. Ousia. So, we can take that understanding that we are learning with us into the text to see how far did Meno get. Did he move from ignorance, what he thought was justice, what he thought was excellence, being kind to your friends and hurting your enemies? Did he move into right opinions? Was he able to follow Socrates? Was he able to learn how to think properly, the dialectic that Socrates mocked him for not learning at his school, to understand how and why those right opinions must be true? Was he able to follow that? Of course you can't hurt your enemies in terms of excellence, because if excellence is the highest good, and good things have to have good effects, just like hot things make things hot, how can a good thing make people bad if hurting people makes people bad? See, we have been reasoning through that ourselves to move from right opinions to understanding. Did Meno make that jump? And ultimately, as Socrates pointed out at the beginning of the book, even that is a precondition or a prerequisite for, or a training for remembering a higher level of cognition, a higher sense we have to know things with as human beings, the knowable experience, that which can be learnt, or what he called the initiation experience. Did Meno get there? Did we get there? Did you get there?
We're going to engage in dishonesty?
Whoops. No, the opposite. Now, as we have been seeing in philosophical midwifery, at every stage of that development, we have blocks and counterattacks. Blocks from us being able to follow, tangents. I'm not good enough. You're a jerk, Socrates. Or I'm gonna beat you up. You'll be sacrificed as a witch. That kind of shit that ends the conversation, ends the relationship. That's a pathologos block. Or a counterattack, which gets us to undermine our conclusions. Let's say we did get through it and come to a new insight, come to a new conclusion, evolve to a higher level of ousia, level up as a being. Well, what if you have a counterattack and you undermine it, you throw it away? You dismiss it. You take your old opinions as more real, and this new insight you don't hold as the most real level of reality you've reached, and center your whole life around that now. Build on your conclusions. That's a way of not growing. Having reached a goal and then throwing it away. Counterattack. We're learning about that in midwifery. Can we recognize the counterattacks in Meno or Anytos or the slave boy and judge them for how well they're doing? Did they fall prey to their counterattack? Or did they do better? Did they turn themselves around? Did they correct themselves? Now, this ability to recognize states of mind and functioning, and not just states of mind and functioning, demonstration, division. Yeah. But to conclude or judge them, that's a weird thing, especially in our culture where we're told, don't judge people. Don't you judge me, says mummy and daddy, says the priest, says Netanyahu as he murders 100,000 children. How dare you judge? That's why we do dream analysis. That's literally what dream analysis is. You reflect on the functioning of your dream character that you think is yourself. You identify states of mind. You judge the states of mind against them so you can plot them in that graph. That's what we've been seeing in our dream analysis. You see how you function. Did that state of mind lead to you functioning well? Did you reach your goal? Was it a success or failure? And that last stage, judging. Was it a success or failure? What would you give it out of 10? What letter grade? Would you give it an A or was it an F? Or was it mediocre, a C? This is one of the reasons why you have to also be learning dream analysis as you do philosophy, because this is how you read. The way of reading that we apply to philosophy, we learn in dream analysis, and we get familiar with in dream analysis. We have to apply that to all of the characters in the text, which can be weird, unless we do dream analysis every day, either on your own, with your friends over coffee, which is a fun thing where we say coffee and we have some coffee. It reminds me to drink some coffee. Also, if you're coming back from the gym, you have some protein drink too. Nourish those muscles. So, dream analysis is a training necessary for learning how to read in philosophy. Oh, and by the way, if we are not only judging the characters, but we ourselves are doing our best to match the different characters progressively, to ultimately match the mind of the author and maybe the mind of Socrates himself, which may be excellence and virtue. We can't do any of that if we're little babies holding dearly to the beloved opinions we got when we were 4 or 5 years old. In other words, we have to empty the cup of all of the what we think philosophy is, what we think dreams are, what we think self is. Which is difficult because everyone loves their stupid fucking opinions. In fact, a lot of people are drawn to philosophy because that's what they think it is. Literally, philodoxia, the love of opinions, is how Socrates described what we do nowadays under philosophy. Various sorts of arrogant dicks who love to spout their opinions. But here's the thing, no one cares, literally. You ever talk to one of these guys? No one likes them. Because no one gives a shit about opinions. Because they're wrong. They're stupid. Everyone's got opinions. You got a PhD? Who gives a shit? You've been appointed this or that yogi? Who cares? There's still a dumb opinion that's probably wrong. We have to empty our cups of our opinions, which is very difficult to do because we love them so much. And in order to empty the cups, there are implications on who we got our opinions from, because most of our opinions we get from mummy and daddy when we're little. Which is why Muslim babies are born to Muslim parents. That ain't a coincidence. Those false opinions are inherited. And if you realize, oh shit, my Muslim beliefs or my Christian beliefs or my Scientology beliefs or you name it, it ain't personal, it's universal. If you realize that they're just dumb opinions and not anything to do with reading, then there are implications on your loved ones. That means mummy and daddy weren't as wise as they pretended to be. No shit. Look at the people who live next door. Do you think their mummy and daddies are wise? Of course you don't. You see them for what they are. Why are we blind to our own parents? In such a way that loyalty is the most powerful force in our universe. A loyalty to our images of our loved ones that we didn't reflect on when we were young because we couldn't. Could that explain why if someone like Trump or Netanyahu or Putin come along and they look enough like our parents, there is a similar blind loyalty and an inability to judge what they do, like the MAGA people? Could that be why they call him Daddy Trump, as he commits genocide against the Palestinians, as he sets up concentration camps, killing American people, as he releases KKK lynching people, he calls them ICE, into the world, to kidnap, rape, torture, murder people without any accountability? And they say, Daddy Trump, keep going, until they're the ones who die? Even then, they'll be giving the thumbs up as they get murdered in the concentration camps, or they die because Trump has stolen their healthcare, all of the resources. So it has an implication to us, requiring us to have that level of maturity, integrity, virtue, which is the subject of the book that we're reading, for our own development, but it has implications on our world and our species. If we care about other people, this is what we have to master and share. If you've been benefiting in this channel by learning this stuff and going through it yourself, you have to share it, says Socrates at the end of the text. So that's midwifery. Understanding the specifics of that difficulty, the difficulties encountered in emptying our cups of our beloved opinions, tied to our beloved false images of our beloved parental figures, that allows us to be trapped in ignorance and suffering and be manipulated not only by our parents, but preachers who resemble them, fascists who resemble them, allowing them to murder and rape and kill with impunity, take all of our money and resources, and ultimately end our whole fucking species. So we're learning about how to read philosophy through midwifery and dream analysis and reading the text itself, because that's where we get the right opinions. Once we empty the cup of our old false opinions through midwifery, we have to then go through some activity of reading to get the actual right opinions from Socrates. Now, it's not because Socrates looks like our parents. He's going to look like no parents, because no parents are like Socrates. That ain't an insult. That's just part of the human thing. Everyone gets a pathologos, part of being here. Therefore, Socrates' level of functioning, even someone like Socrates, I bet he felt compelled at certain moments to pass on the pathologos that was necessary for his kids to have, which was why they were incarnated and born in the first place. All Socrates can do, all we can do, is develop a relationship where even though that happens, we say, let's talk about it every day. Not to justify what we did, or to blame us, or to punish us. No blame ever, no punishment ever. But to learn, to understand, why did we have to get this thing? Why was I compelled to do this thing? What did you come away with? If you had to save the image of me being your beloved parent, the priest king of the house, what blame would you have to take? Unspoken. You couldn't answer back. Too dangerous. In other words, what was the false definition about yourself and reality that you would have had to have walked away from? Because that's what we're here to discover. That's a loving relationship. That's a good relationship. That's the true art of the friendly, or did Socrates say? Friendly and loving art of dialectic. No blame ever. No punishment ever. Blame and punishment is just setting the condition for fascism and oppression. We don't do that ever. Not in this game. So, to learn how to read, we have to be reading the text. But as you read, you're learning a different way of reading than you learned at school. At school, they don't do any of this because we're in the Roman tradition, not the Greek tradition. The Catholic Church and the Nazis and the imperialists, mass murderers, all that sort of shit. The pathologos tradition that killed this, murdered the philosophers, shut down the academy, burnt the libraries, began the Dark Ages. Everything went to shit. That's our tradition. So what are we doing? We're emptying our cup of that Roman pathologos tradition, the modern way, love of opinions and oppression and capitalism and suffering and exploitation. We're emptying that cup as a species and learning to read so we can fill it up with what we need to develop actually through those stages of development, to see not through beliefs or faith or believing someone else who looks like mummy and daddy Trump, daddy Putin. Nope. Not believing the guy in the big funny hat who says he speaks to God somehow, but not you. You're a sinner and you're bad and you should feel bad. Nope. See for ourselves and develop as a being as we go through that process of learning how to see for ourselves, how to think for ourselves, and how to verify our understanding in our own direct experiences. If there's a party, if the experience of knowledge is divine bliss, the brilliant light of pure being, if that's the party, don't you want to go? Or do you want to hear about it? And it's that simple fact that means this is what is necessary to unite our whole species. Everyone gets to go to the party. You don't have to wear a funny hat. You don't have to be a Jew or a Palestinian or a Muslim or a capitalist. Nope. It's for everyone. Everyone gets to play. It's what you're here for. Everyone gets a pathologos. Everyone who has developed or evolved to the point of language and self-reflection, logos and ousia, Greek words, ain't Roman words. That's the game we're here for. So that's the unity part. What about the diversity part? Well, hang on a second. If everyone necessarily gets a pathologos problem, then we're not here to punish people, put people in prison or prison camps or concentration camps or drop bombs on their heads. They are here for a reason, for their soul to learn something, but for our species to learn something. Every single person who's acted in an unjust way, we need to look at, to learn from. Hey, they've already done the unjust thing. Don't let it go to waste. Look at it. Understand what was necessary to create that. What were the conditions and causes? And by the way, if you think, well, criminals have to take responsibility, this is a kind of responsibility that would be far more challenging than just dying in a prison cell. If you really care about justice, this is the sort of shit you would demand of every criminal. Don't let him die, that's the easy way out. Create the conditions for him to reflect on what he had to have learnt to bring him to this spot. Get him to challenge his beloved parents that he was imitating when he acted out in this way. When he had power over a person, what did he do? When Trump has power over people, what does he do? The same KKK shit his dad was doing. Of course, if you understand midwifery, it's obvious. Not for him. Never reflected in his life. Never had to. Like Meno, born into wealth and privilege, born into political office. Why would he ever have to learn and reflect? Could that be why the slave boy did better than Meno? This is our new way of being, necessary way of being, if we're ever going to learn. Because hey, we haven't defeated the Nazis, have we? Nazis are back, doing Nazi shit again. In other words, if you actually care about justice and fairness and putting an end to crime, this is the game that is necessary. Not a matter of opinion, rationally necessary and demonstrably necessary. In other words, we can show it to be the case if we see, number one, the right opinions. Empty your cup? No, we need to punish criminals like John Diehard in that movie, Speed, where he shoots all the terrorists and he wins. I sneezed. You have to empty that stuff. Then we have to fill our cup. By the way, that's midwifery. Then we have to fill our cup with the right opinions, philosophy. Oh, why? What is true justice? How does Socrates deal with that sort of asshole like Trump? Meno. Or maybe Anytos. That kind of anti-intellectual like Stalin or Anytos. Does he beat him up like John Diehard did in that movie? The Avengers? Nope. Okay, if those are the right opinions, that's enough to guide us, of course. That's what we've been reading. That's one of the things we saw at the end. Getting the right directions to California will still get you to California, still get you to LA. But ain't enough. We want to nail it down. We want to make it ours. We want to see through it. We need it to be obvious. So how do we understand how and why those things are necessarily true? That's what Socrates has been teaching us over and over through the dialectic. It's how you nail it down. Even then, that ain't enough. That's still a hypothesis. It's still if. If it's the case, X, Y, and Z. But then you got to test it. You got to go to the party. Knowledge. We got to apply it in our world. See, yes, we can actually solve problems now. We can put an end to Nazism and fascism and capitalism and all these sorts of things that are hurting people en masse. We don't have to believe it because Jeepers said so, or Sky Daddy says so, or Trump Daddy says so, or my daddy says so. Nope. We'll see it. We'll live it. We'll have a fun fucking party. That will be humanity. And we'll continue to evolve. Unlock higher and higher levels of fun and excellence and joy.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
And of course, our question of the Meno is, at what level of that process of development is virtue? Is right opinions virtue? It seems to be enough to guide us correctly. Is nailing it down through understanding virtue? It's necessary to pass it on to someone else. That's the dialectic that we're seeing in the conversation. Is verifying it through knowledge, the knowable experience, is that virtue? But hang on a second, don't we say that there are specific virtues like justice and courage and wisdom and temperance, keeping your cool, charm, humor? Are they true for everyone? Oh my goodness. If they're true for everyone, they must be eternal principles and aspects of being, and therefore things that are knowable. But if we want the excellence of humanity, virtue, true virtue, we need all of them. Would you really be excellent if you can add humor or if you can add courage? You're not quite complete yet. That's one of the puzzles we've been seeing in the text. If true virtue requires all of those aspects of being to be apprehended through all of those functions of ousia or cognitive functions we can evolve through, if we need it as a whole, it has to be from a higher cognitive level than even knowledge. How can you know that which is beyond knowable things? How can you see sound? How can you hear taste? Incommensurate is the fancy word, different kind of a thing. Therefore, can you teach virtue if you can teach somebody up to that level of knowledge, or what the Taoists might think as enlightenment, pure knowing? Well, how do you go beyond that? Is one of the puzzles we have in the text. Now, that's weird. It's a puzzle. I thought reading was giving the right answers on a test, getting an A from your teacher, or giving the opinions that my teacher has, so that's really what you get an A. You find out what your teacher believes, and if your teacher's right into Jesus, say, oh, I read Lord of the Flies, and to me, it's about Jesus and how Jesus loves you. I worked that out when I was in high school too. I had an art teacher who was unmarried, middle-aged woman, And I realized that if I made everything about how it's better to find love later in life, then she would give me A pluses. The MAGA does, right? Oh, anything Trump agrees with, we're going to agree with Daddy. So, a new way of reading where we're specifically looking for questions, things that are not answered, things that are not solved. What a weird thing to do. Unless that's exactly what you learn how to do in dream analysis. What's the question of the dream? What's the puzzle of the dream? What's unsolved in the dream? And that was our last dream analysis that we looked at. Meaning, learning to read requires practice in dream analysis. But if we're human beings and we necessarily get a pathologos, at every stage we'll have blocks and counterattacks, meaning we also have to be doing midwifery to recognize those too. You need to be doing all three. Not only that, to have it all, to see it all, to recognize it as obvious. Is that enough? Or is Socrates using it? If it's necessary to come across someone like Socrates or someone like Pierre Grimes or something like this channel to even find out there is such a thing, everyone around me thinks wisdom is acting like a Noah, even if you're the dumbest person on the planet like Netanyahu or Trump. In fact, the more sadistic you are, hey, cruelty, that's how you know that you're a wise person. The more cruel you are, right, MAGA? Right-wingers? If that's all you know, you need someone else to come into your life and say, hey, there's another game in town. The real game. Meaning, midwifery, dream analysis, philosophy, and mythology. Using it, sharing it. Because we need to share this new way of being in order to save our species, giving us that mastery of oneness, giving us that mastery of the manyness, to help not only our souls, but our species. Which is the exact thing Socrates said to Meno, the eponymous Meno. The name of the text is Meno. Hey Meno, whatever you have learnt, whatever you have changed your mind about in this conversation, go out and find someone who is even more blocked from this logos, from this emptying of your beloved opinions, even more blocked from using that empty cup to develop right opinions, even more blocked from learning how to turn those right opinions into understanding through the dialectic, and even more blocked from applying that understanding or opening your consciousness or mind through the dialectic to know that which you are understanding and directly experience being, virtue, maybe. Beauty, justice, so that he can be a benefit to himself and to Athens. So, if that's how the text concludes, go out and share it, do it, find someone at a lower level than you and bring them up to where you were. And if that's the name of the book, could that be what Socrates is telling you? So, midwifery, dream analysis, philosophy, the Balboa translation so we can actually find those puzzles, and mythology, the four aspects of philodianoia, the true art that we are here to learn and master. And if we don't, That's it. Not only for our species, but for you as a soul. Why live a life where you've trained yourself in the very injustice that you're here to remove? What would that mean for your death? If there is, and we've been seeing over and over again in those four aspects in Philodainoia, that our world is understandable, intelligible, knowable, and maybe even beyond. So all of those things we say intelligible, but also providential or caring. There is a divine care and goodness emanating through the logos, through the dialectic, that you can only really see through dream analysis, because dream analysis is the application of the logos and dialectic to our dreams to get that providence that we can test out personally. Providence and logos is seen through dream analysis. And as we are seeing in all of these things, you have to conclude and push the implications. If the implications of that it's entirely possible to verify, to demonstrate for yourself, we live in a caring and intelligible universe. What would that mean if you've lived a life of injustice because you haven't played that game? Even if you've stumbled across this channel or stumbled across a Balboa or a Pierre Grimes lecture or the Philosophical Midwifery book, or someone similar who demonstrates those qualities: reasoned reflection on causes, understanding, getting rid of false beliefs, showing the implications of not getting rid of false beliefs, and demonstrating charm, beauty that comes with that being their way of being. If you've come across such a person and you've refused, and it is a caring, intelligible universe, meaning there is justice, what would that mean for your experience when you drop dead? Could this be why Socrates says the unexamined life ain't worth living? So that's also explored in the Phaedo, which we read before this. But all of that we take with us into the conclusion of the text. So let's read the conclusion and see if that reflection of everything we've done to date helps us understand the conclusion and understand what the author might be telling us to do. You ever seen the movie Inception, Christopher Nolan movie? You go through all of the movie, learning all this shit about dream work and levels of dreams, multiple levels, to incept an idea that the dreamer won't be able to be aware of if he's certain that he's in the real world. He has to become curious enough to wake up. Go through all of that only to find at the end of the movie, the top doesn't stop spinning. What the hell's going on? The author is saying, hey, all of that other stuff is just material or right opinions that you can use to answer the real question. It isn't in black and white. The author is saying you have to do something. Solve the puzzle of the movie. It ain't a grandma reading. And he's hitting you over the head with it. The last shot is the spinning top. He's slapping you with it like a fish. Fish slap. Similarly, let's have a look at the end and see if we are being slapped with a fish. Hey, all of this stuff that you've been reading, that we have been reading, and everything we've been taking with us in our midwifery and dream analysis too, use it to go back to the beginning, unlock the real puzzle that you have to do. The last midwifery session that we did, or podcast we did, looked at that very stages 7, 8, 9. There are 12 stages in removing our problems in the dialectic. 7, 8, 9 The first 3, definition, the next 3, demonstration, the next 3, division, requires you to go out into the world and apply everything that you've been developing through midwifery. Emptying your cup, allowing yourself to wake up to higher levels of self-reflection on yourself, on your problems, on your state of mind, on your functioning, coming to conclusions or hypothesis. You have to go out in the world and test it. You have to do something with it. And as we're seeing in midwifery, that application will allow you to experience something new, which will change you. If that's the case, if we've been seeing many, many definitions of the dialectic, definitions of what virtue is or isn't, and whether or not it's teachable, if Socrates has been demonstrating it or pointing to it in some way over and over again, what's the next stage? Definition, demonstration, division. We are being instructed, therefore, if it's following the dialectic, if he's not just defining the dialectic for us many times, even with shapes and colors, but if the book is itself a demonstration of the dialectic, maybe even a demonstration of virtue, then that would imply the next stage, definition, demonstration, is division, which means you have to go out and do something with it. Do what? That's our question for today. What are we being told to do? Are we being told to do something? Is that part of reading? It ain't at school, but is it really? In the real tradition, in our true wisdom tradition, the Hellenic. So we say this is Platonic philosophy. No. I mean, it is, but really it's not. It implies that there are many kinds of philosophy and Platonic is one of many. It ain't. It's just thinking. It's just thinking. It's real thinking. It's proper thinking. We can say it's Platonic philosophy to talk about it, to distinguish it from the love of opinions that you learn in philosophy classes or debate classes or Alpha Bro podcasts or whatever. But really, it's just thinking. It's just philosophy. Perennial philosophy, we can call it. The parent philosophy, or the archetype. If the text finishes with a invitation or even instruction or a call to action,
you're a wizard, Harry. You're a wizard, Harry.
Then are we learning about what real thinking is? What real reading is? If so, then we can take this insight from this much shorter dialogue, pretty short one. Meno and Ion are two really short, neat ones. Take it with us as a conclusion that we can go out division and test in other texts to help our reading of the other books that we've already read. Go back to reading the Phaedo. Go back to reading the Parmenides. Hey, we're going to read the Republic soon. Can we take this understanding of definition, demonstration, and division? You got to go out and do something with it so that every single episode that we read the Republic, we can get ahead of the game, move quickly like a thief, to use Socrates' term. That every time we leave, after every episode, we run out into the world, seek our most meaningful goals, and try and apply it to evolve faster, to level up quicker. And if we are doing that and we're gaining all the success and benefit to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to whatever scope we have in the world, saving humanity, raising up everyone, what would that mean? Would we read quicker? Would we have more fun?
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
Would it be a more joyful existence? Would we be getting rid of our problems quicker? If we're doing that, would we be surfacing our blocks to do it, which is the very right opinions or material we need in midwifery to discover our most important question: what is our false belief about self that we don't know we're carrying that's causing our problems and suffering? Is it a win-win in that case?
It's a win-win.
Will our dreams help us, send us less nightmares, give us more encouragement? Could it be a win-win-win?
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win.
This is the implications of reading. And if we're doing it in all areas, are we functioning in a manyness, but it's a single activity? Is that a one and many together? Is that the fundamental question of everything, of reality, of what we're here for? Are we embodying it? And if we're doing it at all times, are we baking it into our character? Such that wherever we find ourselves, even when we drop dead, it's our way of being? Allowing us to take this excellence, this art, this ability to benefit ourselves, our loved ones, and everyone around us, wherever we find ourselves, whenever we find ourselves, whatever dimension we find ourselves. Are these all implications that follow, or the last stage after the division, synthesis and analysis? Are these conclusions that we can come to? Don't know, but I'm willing to wonder about these together with you as we read, as we do something that's just fun on its own as well. Join me, won't you? Let's jump in. I need to take a bio break. I'll be right back. Jeez. Okay, so let's scroll through to the end and see if we can find our hypothesis in the text. Wait. Let's do this one. You are free to share so long as you give attribution, credit. We give all of our flowers to Juan Balboa and his spiritual teacher, Pierre Grimes, who helped him in the understanding of philosophy, in dream analysis, and in the removing of his blocks and interpretation through philosophical midwifery, required to be able to translate these profound words. So, attribution to Juan Balboa and his family, who have also partaken in that same art of Philodainoia. No money for the text. You can donate to the channel if you want. No derivatives. Can't remix it. We're not mixing it up. And attribution. Thanks to Juan Balboa. Whoops. And Dr. Grimes. Let's go back a little bit just so we can get that anti-racist and anti-sexist stuff, which is important. Actually, let's get the whole conclusion. Let's see. Because we've got a lot of puzzles that we're carrying. So one of the things we have to do is judge Meno, his state of mind. How well was he able to follow? So the final question is, hang on a second. Why is knowledge better than right opinion if right opinion can be a good guide? So even though we might not see reality the way Socrates does, perhaps through time, allowing him to artfully help humanity right now, right here, doing it anyway, having the courage, the virtue of courage to follow the logos anyway, if that's a good guide, then why is knowledge better than right opinion? Well, it's like if you had a statue like one made by Daldios, like a great sculpture, and all of a sudden it just got up and ran away one day. You'd be annoyed. So, a work of art that's left loose is not worth much to acquire, like a runaway slave, for they do not remain. They're worth much if they've been bound. Now, this idea of runaway slave, of course, appeals to Meno, so a kind of analogy that he might be familiar with. I don't think Socrates would be a fan of slavery. I think that's part of what he demonstrated earlier. That's kind of obvious. Let's not get bogged down with that. So his works are beautiful, but it's like true opinions. True opinions are also beautiful possessions, which is why my channel, where we get those right opinions, is so popular. The most viewed channel on Twitch. Currently, one viewer, and that's my chatbot. So, very funny. So very beautiful possessions. The work they do is good, but they might not remain. So they run away from the soul of human beings. So we do this every day, as if I can, if I, struggle under capitalism and stuff with money and shit, but try my best to do it every day so we can keep it in our souls. Otherwise, they run away from human souls, if it's just a right opinion. But if they're bound by a certain reasoning into causes, so one of our questions is, what exactly is that certain reasoning into causes? That's a question. And can we find the answer in the text itself? By the way, this is also a form of recollection, because once they've been bound, they can become knowledge. So there we see that cognitive development from right opinions, which you need an empty cup. You have to come with something already. A certain level of freedom from your right opinions to even be watching this channel, to even give a shit about what Socrates has to say or what we're reading here. Rare, currently. So if you're one of those people watching this, flowers to you. You are a rare bird.
You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
So that's a good thing, because a spanking from Emma from the Majority Report you would enjoy. So that's almost that's kind of a reward. So that's for you. So right opinions bound by a certain kind of reasoning, which also is a kind of reasoning about causes. Remember when we talked about how philosophy, the love of learning, can lead to philosophy when you recognize there must be something beyond the physical world, necessarily to cause the things that are universal in our physical world. That's the elevation into philosophy, the love of wisdom. So if our reasoning is applied to that, to the objects in that realm, not a beautiful thing, but beauty itself. Not a just thing, but justice itself. Not equal sticks, but equality itself. That kind of thing. Then that has the ability of graduating into knowledge, because it's a knowable thing. So that's the object of true education. That Meno didn't have, and Socrates made fun of him for not doing that, for having such a crazy bad education. Let's keep going. By the way, that's recollection. So that knowable experience, as we saw earlier in the text, is recalled. So this emptying of our cup, while also learning a certain kind of reasoning into causes, allows us to be filled by a remembering, which can become knowledge. And at that time they steadfastly abide. And surely then it is because of this knowledge is more honored than right opinion, and knowledge differs from right opinion by being bound. Neat. So you can say, hey, that thing's unjust. And they'll say, hey, you don't have knowledge of justice itself. Doesn't matter. I have right opinions. That's just as good. The only difference is knowledge is bound. But it's still true. A right opinion is still true. Ain't that neat? The right opinion of how to get to LA still gets you to LA. By Zeus, Socrates, it is likely to be in such a way. Socrates goes on, I certainly do not speak as one who knows. Over and over, he says that. He is empty of knowledge. He's not claiming to be a knower, like the people in Suits do, or the people with the muscles in the Alpha Bro podcasts do. Or the people with all the money, like the Elon Musk. Yes, I know everything about rockets, and I'm the best gamer in the world. I should decide what happens to healthcare for Americans, because I know everything. Socrates ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. Curious, aren't we? Is that part of justice? Is that part of excellence? Is that part of virtue? I don't speak as one who knows, but by way of comparison. However, there is a difference between right opinion and knowledge. It appears to me I do not infer this by comparison. If indeed there is anything that I would say I know, Socrates knows something. Uh-oh. Since there are very few things I would say about that, this one is one of the things I know. What does Socrates know? That there is a difference between right opinion and knowledge. How would he know? What has he been saying knowledge is all the way through? What does it say about Socrates as a being? what does it say about his spiritual or cognitive development? If it was a dream, what grade would we give him? Now, there's giving a grade to a person's state of being and level of functioning is also part of reading. Which is why modern education is so stupid. Here is Kant. Read Kant. Read Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. That's philosophy. What the fuck? Well, is it right? What? Why are we reading it? Isn't philosophy a love of opinions? So you can go out and be a Benny Shapiro or be a Jordy Peterson and use all your big words and opinions from this or that philosopher to justify your fascism and sexism and anti-women heterophobia and genocide, and lick the boots of Donald Trump as people are being murdered by the hundreds of thousands? Isn't that what? No, that's not education. Dumb philosophers who are dumb. Don't be dumb. Be curious. And learn how to do dream analysis so you can read properly, so you can judge Kant. Hey, Kant's wrong here and here. I give him an F. His state of mind is pretty crazy here, when he used religious justification to discount the mind-body problem. Oh, he gets an F. So any doofus who says, well, capitalism is good, and having slaves and starving people so you can feel better than other people and manipulate through wealth is good because Kant says this. And no, he gets an F. Different way of reading, isn't it? So, difference between love of opinions, philodoxia, that passes as philosophy, much like Meno, all this harming your enemies bullshit. Isn't that our way of being in our culture? But don't we teach philosophy at class? If there are hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of human beings graduating philosophy courses every year, how come we still have fascism and slavery and capitalism? It's almost like they're not fucking doing anything. Maybe they have to level up. Which means if you have seen enough of this, go out and tell them. Tell them. Do a dialectic with them. Hey, what do you think philosophy is? Give a definition. Is it love of opinions? By the way, everything you've learned. Turn it around. Turn the ship around. We can do it. I believe in you. Let's turn the ship around. Usia. To turn around. Alright, so, one of the things I know. You speak correctly, O Socrates, says Meno, someone who has maybe just learned how to judge. I don't know. How's Meno judging Socrates? What then, says Soc? Is the following not correct, that when true opinion guides, it is in no way inferior than knowledge into bringing into completion the purpose of each and every deed and work? The meaning of life. There we go. There's our Turducken. There's the Holy Grail. How is it the meaning of life? Well, if it's the aim or business or function of everything we do, and it can be brought to a completion, that's the destiny of man. So, as you are telling these professors or friends or anybody about what you are learning in philosophy, mention, do you think that there is a way of, that there is a purpose to everything we do? Do you think that purpose can be brought into completion? Socrates seems to think so. How can we take that right opinion and nail it down for ourselves in our soul so that everything that we do ourselves is in service of our highest function or purpose or destiny? I'm sure that person will be very grateful and they'll say, I'm going to buy you a coffee and I want to hear more about this. And you'll say, well, make sure you bring your Balboa translation of the Meno and we'll go through it. It'll be fun.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
Accordingly then, right opinion will be in no way inferior or less beneficial than knowledge in this very aim, function, purpose, business, nor will the one who has right opinion rather than knowledge. Isn't that interesting? Doing this, following these opinions, will get you to the same place Socrates got. So what's your excuse? Oh, you have an excuse? Write it down, use it in midwifery. Because if your excuse is anti this, then it's anti-logos. If it blocks you from doing this, it blocks you from what can bring you to your highest purpose or goal. It's a block. We're looking for them. It is so. This is so. And it was certainly agreed that a person who is good is indeed beneficial. Yes. Good people do good things, have good effects. Now then, seeing as that this is not only through knowledge but also through right opinion, that people can be good and beneficial to their cities, one of the reasons why we need to share it, if indeed they can be, that neither of these, neither knowledge or true opinion naturally arise in human beings, they are acquired. You can't just say it's common sense, you idiot. I just know. How do you know? I was born with it. Bullshit. I know enough about midwifery to know that your opinions come from your pathologos and your childhood and your upbringing. Dummy. And the society that you grew up in, and your education, all this stuff. Don't give me this I was born with it and stuff. Otherwise, we'd have all the blessed babies in the blessed baby tower. That was our argument from the dialectic earlier. Is it not so then that they do not naturally arise? They do not arise naturally, neither can people be naturally good. Certainly not. Then, seeing that it does not arise naturally, we were considering this, if it is teachable. Yes. So, didn't we opine that virtue was phronesis? If virtue was, there's a if phronesis, if virtue was phronesis, which points to that level beyond even knowing. So in terms of the dimensions, there's the physical world of becoming, there's the prior world of being, that's the object of philosophy. Philomethesis can take you to the end of the physical opinions to get you into philosophy. Philosophia, study of being. But philosophy graduates into philophronesis, the love of phronesis. The first hypothesis, the one self. Didn't we say that if it was virtue was phronesis of the one self, it was teachable? Meno says yes, give him a grade. Is that what we concluded? Or was the opposite? So we have to give Meno a grade. What's the implications of whether or not he succeeded or failed? Like in dream analysis. If it were indeed teachable, then it would be phronesis, right? Very much so. Really? But if there were, okay, let's try a different tact. If there were teachers, then it might be teachable, right? Whereas if there were no teachers, then it's probably not teachable, right? Then it would not be teachable. Not probably. I added that. But didn't we agree that, yes, that's right. But didn't we agree that there were no teachers of self? not only are there no teachers, we can add this reflection. Who's learning? How many people do you know have spent their time, their effort, their money, their intelligence, their life energy to learn about the self? Is it a big fat goose egg right now? A big fat zero? Why would that be? Why would it be that no one is learning about the self and therefore there are no teachers? Why is it? It's a good question to ask. We can wonder about that. Can you learn something that you already think you know? What'll be the point? Midwifery and philosophy and dream analysis have to go together. But didn't we also agree that self is neither teachable nor phronesis? Did we? Very much so. But didn't we agree that self was also was actually good? Another word for that one self that phronesis points to is the good self. The one self or the good self. But that which is beneficial and good is that which guides rightly. So to be beneficial is to guide rightly. A doctor guides you rightly in terms of your physical health. A pilot guides you rightly in the plane. A captain, Luffy, is a good and beneficial pilot so long as he guides the Thousand Sunny rightly. Oh, and his crew under his leadership. But only these two beings, indeed, true opinion and knowledge, guide rightly. Which, if possessed by a human being, then they will guide rightly. For those that come to be by providence, luck, touched by the gods, do not come to be from human guidance. But when a human being guides according to that which is right, then it is according to either true opinion or knowledge. It appears to me in this way. What's Meno missing? How do you get from one to the other? Talking about providence, how do you connect with providence? You will only discover that through dream analysis. Or maybe midwifery too. They kind of go together. Appears to Meno in this way. So what can we say already about his conclusions? How well has Meno followed? How open and curious has he been? See? Grandma's reading of this, she's gonna completely miss the point. We have to judge him. We don't take it for granted. It's not blind belief like they teach you at school, like they teach you at church, like they teach you at home. No. How well is Meno concluding? Are there only two beings? True opinion and knowledge? How do you narrow down true opinions? Then, seeing as virtue or excellence is not teachable, then we can no longer take self to be knowledge. Doesn't appear to Meno. Accordingly then, one of the two good and useful beings, beneficial beings, have been excluded. Because we know knowledge is teachable. We know that going through this process, you can remember or recall pure Rusia, the brilliant light of pure being, bliss, enlightenment for the Taoists. The second hypothesis, if you're into the Parmenides, you can reach that through a kind of teaching. But then if virtue isn't teachable, it can't be knowledge. So also, knowledge can't be guiding us in political affairs. All these politicians who claim to know stuff, they're lying to you, pal. Including you, Meno, saying you know what virtue is. Think Trump knows anything? Does he think Trump knows the excellence of humanity? Which needs to be guiding in political affairs, because just as a doctor guides rightly for the excellence of your body, along with a physical trainer, so too, guiding rightly for our soul and society must be from a kind of knowledge and art. But these people who claim to know it can't be, so they can't guide rightly, at least through knowledge. Accordingly, then, it is not by some kind of wisdom, philosophia, love of wisdom, that which is noble in being, nor by being wise, that such people such as Themistocles, whom Anatos was just mentioning, Anatos, an anti-intellectual, very eager to get angry, just one simple 2-minute conversation was enough to get him pissed and want to kill the person. What we would call today a right-winger, or a conservative, or a Trumper, or a Nazi. They also have their favorite politician who claims to be wise and should be guiding in politics, Trump, Hitler. How relevant to right now is this? What would that say about Socrates, and is he using an art to guide us rightly? If this is a direct comparison to MAGA, to Israel and Netanyahu, much to wonder about. It can't be by wisdom or being wise, because excellence is not teachable. Excellence has to be what guides to benefit. But you can teach knowledge. So it can't be knowledge that guides in politics. So they're not wise as they claim to be. And for which reason, they were not able to make the kind of people that they were not able to make others the kind of people that they themselves were, inasmuch as it's not through knowledge. If it's knowledge and teachable, then they should be able to teach it. Has Trump made everyone else rich? All his MAGA people? No, he's making them poorer and more ignorant. Is Netanyahu helping the Palestinians to become like him, wise and knowing? He's so wise and knowing, he gets to decide who lives and dies. Is everybody else, are all of the Jews becoming wise and knowing under his leadership? Are all of the Palestinians that he has decided he is going to be the decider of, the ruler over, they're living in the concentration camps? Is he able to make them good like him? Of course he can't, because they're not guiding through knowledge, if they are actually virtuous as they claim to be, and therefore should be ruling and leading. If they have the goodness of humanity and therefore can guide others to the good, which is what a politician is supposed to be, it can't be through knowledge, which is why they're not making other people wise like them. Because you can teach knowledge. That's what education is supposed to be. That's philosophy. That's the academy. That's why Aristotle was kicked out. Got into physical appearances, materialism. Not being. Where you find truth, eternal truth. If so, it is not through knowledge. If so that it is not through knowledge, surely it remains that self arises through good opinion, eudoxia. This is what people who are politicians and statesmen surely use to maintain their cities upright. But in regards to phronesis, they function no different from oracles. So, if virtue is phronesis, here we go. Earlier, we just read Socrates saying, hey, didn't we say that phronesis is teachable and knowable through education, through learning? Yeah, sure. But here we are concluding, actually, you can learn knowledge, but you can't learn phronesis. The exact opposite of what Meno just said that they thought, that what Meno thought was the conclusion earlier. Was Meno following? If he just contradicted himself? Right, let's read it again. If virtue was phronesis, then it's teachable. Yes. I like that. Says Meno. What do we say? We say highlighter work. Where's my highlighter button? Let's do that. Meno says yes. But here we say, hey, if virtue is teachable, if virtue is not teachable, then it can't be knowledge. That implies you can teach knowledge. Is phronesis teachable? Yes, says Meno. Knowledge is teachable, but virtue isn't. If these politicians actually had knowledge, they could use it to make people wise or rich or happy like them. And they don't. They do the opposite, don't they? But by the way, in reference to phronesis, they function no differently from oracles or divine prophets. For on the one hand, they also speak much that is true, but they know nothing of what they're saying. If there are politicians who happen to guide people rightly, it ain't through knowledge. It must just happen to be good opinion. But in terms of actual excellence, if they happened to be excellence every now and then, it's like a oracle or a divine prophet who happens to be inspired and hits the mark through luck because they know nothing about what they're saying. It has to be in this way, says Meno. So is it proper then to conclude and call these people divinely inspired, but without intellect or mind? Nous. That which can apprehend knowledge. But still, hey, even these people who you think are doing a good job guiding the city, if they set right many and grand affairs, it's because of divine providence. There is something else happened to be guiding them when they hit the mark, giving them the right opinion then, but not always. Why? Because true excellence, being phronesis of the self, ain't teachable, and knowledge is teachable, but they're not making other people wise and knowing. So it's only, the only thing left is right opinion. So if a politician happens to get it right every now and again, happens upon right opinion, it's through some sort of divine inspiration like a prophet or an oracle. Yeah, every once in a while the preacher in front of the pulpit might get something right. Whoop-de-doo. So it'd be right really to call them divine, like oracles or prophets or poets. Now, of course, there's a higher level of oracle that we can talk about later, which would have those things together and can use it to function through time to benefit, like Socrates' teacher, Diotima. But what Socrates is pointing to is a different kind, like a poet. A one-hit wonder, we might call it. Those are the politicians, the statesmen, who we declare to be divine, but really divinely inspired, by being breathed upon and by possessing the god. It's only in that way that they can set aright many grand affairs through the speech, while knowing nothing of what they speak. Socrates is slamming every politician. They don't know anything. If they happen to use their speeches to hit the mark every once in a while, they got lucky. They're no better than the preacher speaking for hours every Sunday about bullshit nonsense. Maybe they might hit the mark every once in a while. So they happened upon a correct opinion through being breathed upon by something beyond them, but they know nothing. They know nothing. Is that true today? How many politicians know anything? Are able to make everyone as wise and knowing as Socrates? Bring us to the knowledge of being? Unite our species through not just happening upon a right opinion every now and again, but that which nails down right opinions through education, bringing us to confirming it in knowledge? How many politicians are doing that? Is it a big fat zero still? Well, at least we know what to look for. People who can do that, we need to demand, you need to be the politicians. Because zero people are doing that. The fact that we are still alive is only because of some providence. No one knows, and no one has the kind of understanding based on a kind of logos upon causes that we have been learning here. So we better be learning that dialectic or philodianoia, right? Because even if we do, not only to go from right opinions to knowledge, but to follow the dialectic that Socrates is saying, even knowledge that you can help bring other people to wisdom or knowledge, that's not the whole thing either. Virtue is beyond that, phronesis, philosophy to philophronesis. Can you teach that? What would you be teaching? Who would be learning? Someone who recognizes they don't know the self, or has seen what they believe to be themselves to be wrong. What's the art that allows people to recognize that? What's the guide that points to that every night? Very much so. What is? Hey, any of these politicians who claim to know shit, they don't know anything. If they've done anything good, they happen upon right opinion. Not because they know anything, because of divine inspiration, let's say, to be kind. Without a doubt, the women indeed call people who are good divine, don't they? Sexist Meno. Women know that better than you politicians. True today, in that these politics is divided by as hoarded. People who seek office aren't people who know. People who have virtue, people who have phronesis, people who have mastery of the dialectic, people who have love of understanding. Ignorant men usually claiming to know shit they don't. How interesting that it directly applies to us now. By the way, the women know this. They see through the bullshit. So they'll say, oh yeah, if you're good, it's because of the divine, not because you know anything. So when Meno said virtue was recognizing that women are less than men, like the Shapiros and the Petersons and the Nazis and the fascists and the MAGAs all say, and the Catholics and the Christians and the Muslims and all you picket, throw a rock, and you've got men saying, we're better because we have a penis? Really? What about this? True today as it was then? Well, Socrates is saying, hey, you know who's smarter than you? Women, you sexist pig. Wouldn't it be important to go out and tell MAGA people this? Tell Nazis this? Go on Joe Rogan, tell him this? I'd tune into that episode. You know who else recognizes this better than you? Immigrants, foreigners. People that you think it's wise and good for politicians to be putting into concentration camps, death camps, dropping bombs on their head. Didn't Meno say virtue? The reason he knows what virtue is, that's why he should be in charge. It's hurting your political enemies, the foreigners. You know who knows better than you? Not just women, you sexist bastard. The Spartans. The Spartans praise any good person by saying, this divine person. Do they worship Trump? Do they worship Netanyahu? This divine, oh, this good person? Oh, they're good because somehow the divine is speaking through them. Women and Spartans. Obviously, Spartans were the enemies of the Athenians, right? Meno says, it's quite manifest that you speak rightly. Even though, if Anytos heard this, he would be offended. If the right heard this, well, their little feelings would be hurt. Women and foreigners are smarter than me? Surely not. My feels. My fifis. Isn't that exactly what's happening now? So we've got a judge. Is Meno right? Would Anytos be offended by that? Is Meno projecting? When Meno said, oh, I think I'm stung, but I still am talking a lot, and I'm so stung and confused and puzzled that I don't know what to say, both in my mouth and my soul. I have aporia, I have this great aporia that you speak of, being stung. Realizing I'm ignorant and don't know what to have to say. Wow, but I still make good speeches, even though I have made great speeches about virtue in the past. And I still think I make good speeches about virtue. Really? What kind of a person is Meno? Is he still that kind of a person, or has he changed? Oh yeah, I agree with you, Socrates. But the left, Anytos, he would be pissed. To hear women and foreigners are smarter and better than us? What's he doing? Socrates says, that doesn't concern me, Meno. We will talk with him again. If we were right in the way which we spoke and investigated this whole logos, then excellence or virtue would neither arise by nature nor be teachable, since self comes without intellect by divine inspiration, to whom self may come, unless there is such a person among our statesmen who can make another person into a statesman. What are we learning that isn't a teaching, that isn't a filling you, but is an encouragement to wonder about yourself and the problems you have, the ignorance you have? What is it that we're learning how to do on this channel that isn't a teaching to knowledge like philosophy, but also isn't something you have naturally, you have to still go through it? that isn't about wisdom or the mind, but about self. Is it something that we can master to become good people and benefit but ourselves, but also as we go, we are encouraged to pass on that to others, our loved ones, our friends, over coffee. Cheers. Are we learning something like this? If there is, then this individual could almost be said to be so among the living, as Homer says to Tiresias was among the dead, when he says concerning self, such a man has the breath of life, salt mindfulness among those in Hades, while others are but flittering shadows. What's the analogy we use in midwifery? Sleepwalkers, zombies, NPCs. Could we add flittering shadows? For such a man, the same relation would also exist in this realm, as excellence would be true reality compared to shadows. Such a person has true excellence and is among those in the divine realm, while others are but flittering shadows. Just as excellence would be true reality compared to the shadows people who think they know about self are. Where have we heard that before? You appear to speak most beautifully, O Socrates. Socrates continues, then, on the one hand, from this logos, Meno, it has come to light. What has come to light? That virtue comes by divine dispensation to those whom it normally comes. However, we shall have clear knowledge about self at that time. Clear is different from being, isn't it? Which is brilliant and pure beauty and pure bliss and knowing everything all at once and eternity at once. Infinite and oneness together. Different from a clear knowledge, isn't it? Anyway, let's keep going. We'll have clear knowledge about what? Self. At that time, before inquiring how we get excellence, how we teach others, whether we take all their money, whether we take their healthcare, whether we bomb them, whether we genocide them, whether we give them this or that textbook in school. Before we ask, like the statesmen or politicians do now, how we make people excellent, we first go out of our way to discover what the heck excellence is, self by self. What the heck does self by self mean? Where have you seen self in relation to self? Do we use it in that other thing we've been talking about? Therefore, is Socrates saying this is absolutely necessary for everyone, especially anyone in leadership positions, especially politicians, to have a mastery of this, where you can gain not through adding or remembering, but a kind of clearing away a knowledge about self to discover true excellence that you can also help others do and gain mastery of, provided you use a method where you look at self in relation to self. Is Socrates helping us? Is this exactly what we must insist in our society, in our world, for humanity right now? If that's the case, is Socrates functioning like a doctor through time to benefit our whole species and you? And if that is the highest and truest art and benefit, must he be good himself by self? But the hour has come to go. So, you must go out and find MAGA man Anitos and persuade him by these words, if you have been persuaded yourself, so that self will become more gentle. What did we say the gentle art was right at the beginning? If you can persuade him, then it will be a providential way of being. What does that imply? What sort of person does providence? What sort of person is benefiting? A good person. If you are able to take someone like Anitos and make him more gentle for himself, and also would be doing a great service for humanity, you will be profiting him and all of our species by doing something that can turn someone around. If you can do this, division, go out and do it. Could this be how we get excellence? If that's the case, it's not a teaching. It's something you get through helping others in this very way that can turn someone around, realize all this, emptying their cup about self. Is virtue teachable? Or is it some curious way of being? Socrates is saying you will only get, you, the reader, if you go out and do this. What is that art that you can pass on to make someone better and more gentle to self and the world? Go out and do it. For the hour has come for me to go. Go out and do it. That's your quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I encourage you to join us in that quest. It's a fun game. The noblest game, and the only real game in town. On that note, best of providence on your journey. Please join the Discord if you want to share how you go on that journey, the ups and downs, because not only your successes, but the blocks and problems you face on the way, that's the very material that we have to do to clear up our own self-ignorance. That's what we're learning how to do here, and we're supporting each other on doing here. That's our way of being, the only way of being that can overcome human problems and unite self in excellence. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one.